1 year ago, here at the Apollo Theater, we gathered to celebrate an historic announcement by Governor Andrew Cuomo committing to end the AIDS epidemic here in New York State by 2020. It is a commitment which would make New York, once the epicenter of the United States epidemic, the first major jurisdiction in the world to bring the AIDS epidemic to an end.
This is a governor who leads, whose decisive actions translate to real, tangible progress that benefits the lives of millions of people and protects the rights of often disenfranchised groups, including LGBT people and individuals and families living with and affected by HIV. The governor not only leads the nation in ending AIDS, but his bold actions have made New York a national leader in the fight for LGBT rights once again.
He championed and achieved full marriage rights for same-sex couples when folk told us it was not possible. With determination, he restored New York's proud legacy as a progressive leader by passing the Marriage Equality Act, ensuring same-sex couples the right to marry, and securing for them the thousands of federal and state rights that other couples receive here in New York, transforming the debate nationally.
But the governor's leadership didn't stop there. He launched a coordinated, multi-agency effort to strengthen data collection for LGBT New Yorkers to better tailor services, which will ultimately improve the health and lives of thousands of New Yorkers. The governor also updated standards that restricted transgender New Yorkers from obtaining vital documents, ensuring that transgender New Yorkers can change their birth certificates to be consistent with medical science and practice.
This is bold, decisive leadership that establishes New York as the place where what seemed impossible has become reality. The governor has been a true champion for change and has continued this bold action with his commitment to end AIDS in New York by 2020.
Even before we gathered here last year, the governor had already followed through on his announcement by appointing a diverse, community-led task force to develop a blueprint to end the epidemic. On April 29th, at a rally in front of the LGBT Center here in Manhattan, Governor Cuomo formally accepted the Ending the Epidemic blueprint. He called for full implementation of its recommendations, saying that this action would make New York a model for the rest of the nation.
But Governor Cuomo did not wait for his task force to complete its work before he started delivering on some of the recommendations. Last December, he issued instructions to New York State Medicaid and other insurance providers regulated by the state, requiring them to provide comprehensive transgender health services.
In his executive budget, Governor Cuomo advanced a number of Ending the Epidemic blueprint recommendations, revising the surveillance law to help retain people in care, decriminalizing syringes for persons enrolled in certified harm reduction and ESAP programs, and prohibiting the use of mere possession of condoms as evidence of misdemeanor offenses. The governor also provided $10 million in seed money to allow the AIDS Institute to begin implementation of a variety of programs across the state directed at ending the epidemic.
And just last month, we had a watershed moment that we have been fighting for more than 8 years. In the face of resistance by the leadership of the New York State Senate to passage of JENDA, Governor Cuomo announced that the New York State human rights law would be interpreted to protect transgender and gender variant people from discrimination statewide.
Governor Cuomo, you led and we have followed all across this great state. We know we have much work ahead of us, but with your leadership, we know that we can achieve the goal of ending the epidemic in every New York community. Because of your actions, the Empire State is a national leader for the LGBT community once again, and is the singular leader in the fight to end the AIDS epidemic. We are standard bearers blazing a path for the rest of the nation to follow, and it is with your leadership that we are continuing to march forward.
Governor Cuomo, because of your commitment, your courage, and your leadership, and in memory of the many New Yorkers AIDS has taken from us, We, the New York State End AIDS New York 2020 Community Coalition, would like to honor you on this World AIDS Day. Friends, allow us to present New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Right there.
Wow, wow, wow. This is exciting. First, to be at the Apollo Theater, to be with people who I respect and I admire for many, many years. First, to Charles King in Housing Works, who has been doing it the hard way for a long, long time. I am so proud of him. To Jackie Kilmer and Harlem United, let's give her a round of applause for all their good work. And to all the members of the AIDS 2020 Coalition, thank you, thank you, thank you for your great work. Let's give them a round of applause. We have my colleagues here who Charles noted, the elected officials who are here, and I want to thank them very much for their presence. Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito. We have my counsel, who has really been extraordinary in this regard, Alfonso David, and I want to acknowledge him. We have Senator Gustavo Rivera, Assemblyman Gottfried, and we have Senator Brad Hoylman. Brad Hoylman, this past year, was fighting tenaciously for $500,000 to fund an AIDS memorial downtown on 12th Street. And he would not take no for an answer. He was committed to it. He was working it 24 hours a day. And it's on my desk now, and I'd just like to say to Senator Hoylman, yes, we're going to do that, and you're right, $500,000 for the AIDS memorial. And let me applaud all the people in this room who have worked long and hard. This has been a struggle, but you brought it home. Give yourselves a round of applause. "25 years. I was talking to Charles about it. Unfortunately, we're old enough to remember when it started. But it has been a long and a hard and a tough 25 years. When HIV/AIDS first started, it was not really a medical crisis. It was worse. It was a social crisis. HIV/AIDS became a lightning rod for stereotyping and for discrimination. It was used to fan the flames of fear and bigotry. It was a looking glass into the soul of society. And individual and collective reactions spoke volumes. Some buildings closed their doors. Some families cast aside loved ones. President Reagan refused to acknowledge the disease for 3 years of his presidency. But then there were those who rose to the occasion, who opened their hearts and opened their minds and reached out to people, like the people who are in this room today. We had government leaders who led with the voice of our better angels. I'm very proud to say that the first state and the first governor that responded to the AIDS crisis with a real action plan was the state of New York and Governor Mario Cuomo. We have made remarkable progress. You put education together with medical advancement, together with political activism, and that has been the real cocktail of success. This year is the first year that there have been no mother-to-newborn transmissions. Isn't that amazing? But we are not home yet. The goal is to end the epidemic, and that's why New York was the first state to give it a date a target date 2020 as the date to end the AIDS epidemic, end it once and for all. That's success. Now, to get that done, there is no time for complacency. All of our partners need to double their efforts in this final push. All levels of government must energize their efforts. And my friends, it starts with the federal government. The federal government's main housing program is something called HOPWA. I used to administer it when I was Secretary of Housing during the Clinton administration. The housing budget under HOPWA for people with AIDS is the same level it was 5 years ago. And that is simply not acceptable. We need the federal government in this fight. We need them full-throated, and we need it to be part of the conversation. We're now about to select a president. I've watched all the debates, Democratic debates, Republican debates. There's a debate every day. I have not heard a question to any candidate on HIV and AIDS. And that is just wrong. And I say to the media today, let's talk about the issues that matter. And let's stop talking about Donald Trump's vision, and let's start talking about HIV and AIDS and what their plan is going to be. In New York, we believe in leading by example. We don't talk, we show. This state now spends $2.5 billion for people with AIDS between health care and housing. And I'm proud to say this state spends more than any other state in the United States of America, and we're proud of it. But we need to do more, and we're going to lead the way. I'm going to go to my colleagues in the legislature this January, and I'm going to propose an additional $200 million to fund the programs, health care, and housing for people with AIDS. Our efforts will be implementing the recommendation of the AIDS task force that Charles spoke about and served on, more housing through HASA, more life insurance coverage for people living with HIV, more enhanced Medicaid and managed care coverage, more availability of proven drugs like PrEP for anyone who needs them. And it has been a long journey, but I give you my word, we will not end until we reach our target. Don't get me wrong, it's not even that our work is going to end in 2020, because we'll have ended the epidemic here. But then we have to take all our know-how and knowledge and all our medications and go to the countries around the world that are still suffering mightily from this disease. In closing, let me say this. I'm not surprised that New York has been the epicenter of this crisis for 25 years. We experienced both the most intense pain and the most success. We lost over 150,000 of our brothers and sisters during that period of time. I'm not surprised that New Yorkers, like the people in this room, led the way, because that is the New York credo. We are the progressive capital of the nation, the capital of diversity and of community. We welcome and we celebrate our differences, and we fiercely defend our individual rights, because that's what makes us who we are as New Yorkers. In the heart of New York, we believe the strongest four-letter words are not hate but love, and not fear but hope. And we carry that banner high and proud. That's why New York was the birthplace to the women's rights movement in Seneca Falls. That's why New York was the birthplace to the workers' rights movement at the Shirtwaist Triangle Factory fire. That's why New York was the birthplace to the gay rights movement at Stonewall. And we live that legacy today. It's who we are, it's where we came from, and it is where we are going. And New York is a monument to the nation on the progressive direction forward. It's our past, it's our present, it's our future. And that's why we passed marriage equality, and we said to this nation, don't you discriminate on who can love and who can't love. All people have the right to marry, and we passed marriage equality. That is why we stood up and we signed an executive order banning gender identity discrimination when the legislature wouldn't pass gender. We did it with an executive order because we're not going to tolerate discrimination against anyone, anywhere, at any time. That's why we stood up for racial justice after the Eric Garner case and appointed the first and only independent prosecutor in the United States of America. That's why New York opens its arms to refugees from war-torn countries, because that's what New York is all about. That's why we proposed increasing the minimum wage to $15, the highest amount in the United States of America, because that's the New York way, and that's why we will not stop fighting until this epidemic is over in 2020. Thank you, and God bless you, and thank you for the honor. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Give him a round of applause.